Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another surreal, very happy. Is this the real life? I don't know. Edition of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Coming at you after another pretty amazing week that I can't wait to talk about with the one and only. He's now lost 2 in a row. We'll get to that at the end of the show. I'm sure he doesn't mind too much, though. Jeremy Cohen. Hello, sir.
I don't mind at all, John. Not one bit. And I'll tell you, this has been one of the best recent short stretches of sports for me in a while. Knicks have obviously won 7 in a row. The Rangers have won 7 in a row. The Giants won on Sunday Night Football. I don't really care about that last play. A win is a win. Let's see what else. The Yankees got their ace. So that was pretty great. We saw some incredible soccer this weekend.
We did.
The best matches potentially ever. Some great football. It's wonderful. So I'm going to enjoy it as long as I can. And that's why I'm really okay with you having 2 on the board and being down by 4. That's fine. I can live with that.
That's slowly, but I'm like the Orlando Magic.
You are. Yeah. You've beaten the Boston Celtics twice in 3 days. It's great.
See, I know that's painful for you because you hate everything about Boston sports. So you had to give a backhanded compliment to the Celtics.
Yes. But that's okay.
Yes. All right.
What is it? I'm going to botch it but you either live long enough to see yourself, you either die here or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So that's
something like that.
The Boston.
Well, what happens if you go from being the hero to the villain and your team does not trade you despite the protestations of certain podcast hosts in the greater New York area, and then you rebound and you start playing good again and you become the hero again and you get nominated for Eastern Conference Player of the Week twice in a row? What do they call that? Is there a name for that? I don't think there's a quippy catchphrase for that one.
Yeah, it's called Julius Randle.
Oh man. Yeah, it's silly season here at the Knicks Film School Podcast because I don't know. Let's start here. Well, first week in review. Knicks played 3 games this week, won 3 games this week. 2 games against the Bulls, who are is there a team in a worse spot in the NBA than the Bulls right now? I don't want to go on a whole Bulls thing, but just a quick yes or no. What does your gut feeling tell you?
I would take the Wolves situation over the Bulls right now.
They got Anthony Edwards, so that makes sense. I'll
say this. I think here's the thing. The Wizards are in a really terrible spot.
This is not a good spot. Yeah.
They can't trade Bradley Beal without his permission. They can move Kuzma and Porzingis if they want to. They don't.
Wizards only own 1 pick though. And it's heavily protected, unlike Chicago's pick. Yeah.
Right. And it's but here's the thing. I can't sit here and be like, well, the Bulls have no chance at even getting Wembanyama because they do. But their odds are getting further and further if they win games. And the closer they get, the more embarrassing it is because they're supposed to be winning games. And they're not.
No.
They're just not doing that. So they're in a pretty pitiful spot, which I'm very okay with.
Yeah. And I don't think that should diminish the first win of this week, in which the Knicks went to overtime against the Bulls and ended up winning 128-120. My God, that game seems like a million years ago now. But that's kind of how these weeks go. And then obviously the second one was a laugher. And then we just had I'll call it a classic against the Pacers, come back not once, but twice in the final minutes. I feel just to kind of talk big picture for a second, we are now, it's Monday that we're recording this. So we're now over a full 2 weeks removed from doomsday, from who's not getting fired, who's not going to get traded potentially. And I don't at first this was really cool because it's it was coming off of the heels of the Dallas game. And now the further away we get from it, for me at least, and I think I spoke about this a little bit last week, but it's really starting to crystallize for me now that it seems like the season has, I'm personally, and I want to know if you are doing the same, breaking the season into 2 halves that are not equal halves, because there was the first 13 games in which they had several disastrous performances in which they gave up 1 million threes and gave up a whole ton of points, and the defense looked like a disjointed mess. And then starting with the West Coast road trip, which is now 17 games ago, which is when they kind of started to right the ship. And then if you want, but then there's this other line of demarcation, which is when they changed the starting lineup, which is now 13 games ago. And then of course there's a 7-game winning streak. So we have like 3 different lines of demarcation in your mind where like, how does your mind work when you're trying to like break the season down into its parts?
I've been trying to find an exact line as well. You know, you tweeted out about the defensive rebounding, which is really funny because I was in the process of formulating something talking about the defensive rebounding. I was like, oh, John's got it. Perfect. I can go back to my day job. Wonderful. But it's the sort of thing where over the last 2 weeks, the Knicks are number 1 in defensive rebounding percentage, which is something that 2 weeks prior to that would have been like, wow, could you imagine even being not below 25th? Because that'd be great. But instead, they've been that great. And you know, with the Mavs game, it's almost like Matthew McConaughey, where it's like, in order to way to go backwards in order to move forwards. All right, that sort of thing. It's a line. I can see the look in your face. Like, where did he say that?
I know the all right is from.
Well, yeah, unless it might be an SNL sketch where they did that. Regardless,
just look at it.
Like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're moving forwards. It's the beauty that you had to be broken down in order to grow from there. And I think
I like the line. I like the sentiment. Yeah.
It seems that the 2 lowest points for the Knicks have caused them to look in the mirror and find ways to get better. They had the players only meeting in Utah, and then they went on a 3-2 road trip.
Yeah.
And then they got the doors blown in the third quarter of the Mavericks game, and they've rebounded quite nicely from there. And we're talking about 7 straight wins. So in terms of kind of piecing it together, I think overall, I would agree that the proper starting point is when the starting 5 have really been able to play together.
I agree.
And listen, I believe that when Quentin Grimes is in the starting rotation, the Knicks are on, I think it's a 55-game win pace. Now that's very helpful when there's a 7-game win streak that plays into your favor. So it's a little skewed, but hashtag 55 wins. It's 2 more than 53 wins, John. But with that being said, it's like, I think that's a great starting point. I would agree.
Yeah. And it's a great starting point, I think, for a few reasons. For one, well, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at this, right? There is the contingent of folks who are like, well, of course, what's going on now is working. This is what everybody's been asking for since last year, which is true. It is what many people have been asking for since last year, and it is working. At the same time, part of what we're seeing now was the plan going into this season always. You know, Ian Begley reported it first over the summer, before the season even started, where it's like they want Quentin Grimes in the starting lineup because they're concerned about how Evan Fournier and Jalen Brunson are going to work defensively alongside one another. And wouldn't you know it, those concerns were not unfounded.
They were honest.
Man, it's funny to look back at some of the Fournier lineup data now, which anyway,
word, yeah.
What's that? Yeah, funny is
a word.
It's a word. But yeah, so this was always the plan. I think the more curious part for me is the rest of it, because really, I mean, we're just talking about a couple little. Well, not little. I mean, it goes into the identity of this team, because this team giving Evan Fournier and Derrick Rose significant minutes, was one thing. And this team giving Deuce and other good defenders more minutes on the team is a completely and totally different thing. And the thing that has struck me the most about their success over the last few weeks, and if you want to extend it even past that, is the floor has risen so much, right? It's like you turn on a Knick game now, and as opposed to last year for sure, and the beginning of this year, where you feel like you're taking your life into your damn hands, like as a sports fan. Now it's like, even if a team does start out really, really hot from 3, like the Pacers did the other night, they were shooting like almost 50% from 3 through the first like three quarters of that game, or 2.5 quarters of that game. You're like, okay, that's all right. We'll be okay. That's been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, they don't let go of the rope from the top down, that has been a foundation. I mean, we talk about how Tibbs is a defensive minded coach, and obviously the bottom was falling out on that earlier this season, and they found a way to hold each other accountable. Some of that was certainly from a personnel standpoint. I appreciated what Derrick Rose had to say, where he's like, I'm not a hater. I love the fact that we're winning, and Miles McBride is a good kid. He had his family over for Thanksgiving, and it was great. And that's the type of mindset you want on a team. Evan Fournier has been on the shelf for ages now, and he's not said anything controversial. No, he seems to be a great teammate. I think it's a testament to how the Knicks have found players where if you can't be productive, you at least find a way to be a good team player. Even if it's not on the court, it's off the court. But the thing is that they have made room for the players who are on the court to be productive as well. And so much of that has come from defensive rebounding. It has come from defending the 3-point line. And we can talk about luck and open shots. And
can we talk about that? Finish what you're saying, and then I want to talk about that.
But there's been so much more switching as well. And I feel as though the accountability, where it's almost like you can trust your teammates more than just being on an island and getting cooked. Now there's so much more versatility there that it almost feels empowering. You feel like you're part of a unit as opposed to just an individual piece that's kind of moving. Like they're singing. It's coming together beautifully. So you just build off of that. Even if there are losses and bumps and bruises along the way, you pick up right where you left off. And that's also kind of just the Tibbs player is very much a good embodiment of what a Knicks player should be. Just two-way minded, tough, relentless, doesn't give up, incredible worker. And I think that's a great attribute for every team to have, for every player, but that doesn't represent every player. And that's why the Knicks have been so good with the front office and their drafting at identifying players who are the same as what Tom Thibodeau likes. And we talk a lot about how there's some times where the front office and Tibbs maybe are too synergetic, where the front office listens to Tibbs maybe more than they should. But there are positive things that Tom Thibodeau has in terms of the mentality and attributes of a player that the front office clearly agrees with. And the two of them can then work together and build really good product. Like, Quentin Grimes.
I was about to say,
to me, that's like the front office drafted a player that Tom Thibodeau loves, and Tom Thibodeau is molding that player in a way the front office views him to be ceiling wise and raising the floor of the whole team. So no complaints there.
You baited me, so I'm going to take the bait. I wasn't planning on praising Tibbs, but I will give him. I will throw this small bone. One, what you just said, and I think if you would have told me 3 weeks ago or 2.5 weeks ago, even, that this year's team could end up approximating a version of itself that made us as fans, us old, now I have to age myself, us old folks, us older chaps who've been around for a while, recall the 90s more than the team from 2 years ago, I would have called you all sorts of names. And I would have said that there's no way in the universe that would have been possible. This team is doing it because I think for as good as that team was defensively 2 years ago, this team, man, they get after it something fierce with these. I mean, between Deuce and Grimes, and I feel bad. I always put Quickly third in that, and he's like such a great defender. It's just more in more subtle ways, not as in your face. And then Mitch is like kind of the foundation of the whole thing. That's number one, and that's, you know, I do think that's a credit to Tibbs. But the bigger thing with Tibbs is, and this is again because everything with him is gift and curse, right? There are drawbacks to this, but say what you want about him, he knows exactly what he wants. Like, I can't imagine there are many coaches out there who have as clear an idea of like, look, if you get me these sorts of guys, like, I'm going to give you what you want. The fact is, if you get him his sorts of guys, he's going to get you what you want as a franchise. He's going to get you wins. And yeah, like, but then and I want to go back to something you said about the luck or whatever, but like, I don't think we've talked about this, but I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's the elephant in the room, but going to Deuce, where do you think that came from? If you had to, I don't know. I want to say flatly, I just don't know.
I since you asked me,
I did ask you.
I had heard from someone who has been reliable to say that it was the front office that was pushing in that direction.
It would not surprise me in the least.
No, I mean, when you especially look at the connection that Tibbs and Derrick Rose have, and the fact that for Tibbs with the younger players, it's I will trust you when you have proven that you deserve to be trusted. And
as opposed to a veteran where it's like, I'm going to ride with you until the wheels. Yeah.
And then even then I'll probably
continue. I'll continue dragging your corpse.
Right. But the thing that's frustrating is that I felt as though Deuce McBride showed enough potential last year, especially, that Miami game, for example, where the Knicks came back to win. Yeah. That's an example of when he had already proven I deserve the opportunity to be able to be in this rotation. The thing is, and however the decision-making process came to be, when you look at Derrick Rose versus Alec Burks, where moving Alec Burks didn't provide a pathway for Deuce McBride, whereas if you had moved Derrick Rose in the first place, then there would have been the role for Deuce McBride to step up. But there was a logjam, and Tibbs wasn't necessarily going to say to Derrick Rose, Derrick, even if you don't have it, I'm still going to keep playing you. And that is where the front office then, to my knowledge, said, let's get Deuce McBride in there. This was a rough game against Dallas. See a direction we can move. We did not split the 32nd pick into 34 and 36 for neither of those picks to be playing the NBA. We have one of them on the roster right now. Let's get him some minutes.
That was Jeremiah Robinson Earl, right?
It was, but then the second being Rokas.
Yes. No, I forgot who the 32nd. What was Herb Jones 30?
Herb Jones was in between.
Yes, that's right. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with Deuce. I'm not pining over Herb Jones, but then again, I was never really pining over Herb Jones. That makes a lot of sense to me. It is just strange because Deuce. It's weird because, like, on one hand, it is easy to say like, oh, Deuce McBride, Tibbs type of player, right? But at the same time, we've also known Tibbs to be very skeptical about, certain, like he likes having guards that could score in a variety of ways. Like he's always shown himself to want guards that could score. Like you could talk up and down about defense. He wants guards who at least have a pathway to a reliable offense. Even Elfrid Payton, say all the nasty things you want about Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton drove the hell out of the ball and like shot at the rim a lot. He didn't make many of those shots, but he did shoot a lot at the rim, which, like, hey, if we've seen the team continue to go to RJ Barrett doesn't always make a lot of his shots at the rim, but he shoots a lot of them. And when you build this team around the likes of Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel and Jericho Sims and I'd say Hartenstein, all great offensive rebounders, like, okay, I'm getting off track, but the point is, like, that was less clear with Deuce. And now, sure enough, Deuce is getting time. And I mean, in the Pacers game the other night, it's easy to forget about because of all the other big shots that came down the stretch, but they were down by 3 in, I think it was the beginning of the fourth quarter, right? Mm-hmm. And Deuce McBride hit a 3 that in the moment, it felt absolutely massive because it felt like the Knicks were letting go of the rope. And he hit that shot. And it's one of a lot of big threes that Deuce has hit over since he's been inserted into the rotation. So I think there's enough there. And I know we have a trade embargo on this episode. We're not talking trades, but like, I'm not doing it. I just want to say, I don't think this counts as talking trade, but like the biggest reason I don't want this team to make a trade is I don't want Deuce. I want Deuce to keep playing. I'm like, I don't think that's irrational of me. Like, is that just me being a fanboy, or is that like, I think that's a reasonable take from a development perspective and from like, hey, we're going to win games this year because of what this guy does.
Yeah. It's all about positioning, like I'm going to stick to the embargo to the best of my abilities. All I will say is that you have, I like Andrew's look of skepticism.
Andrew's giving us a look of death.
All I'm going to say right for this moment is that you have about $24 million with Evan Fournier and Cam Reddish, and neither of them is playing. Yep. And you don't have to move Evan Fournier, but you probably at a certain point have to figure out something with Cam Reddish for his own sake, because he is an NBA player who deserves to have another shot. But the factor here is, how do you find a player that you can turn nothing? Do you turn it into also nothing? Do you turn nothing into something? If you turn nothing into something, how does that impact the players on the court? That's all I'm saying with that.
Yeah.
But I do want to say one other thing, which is this
having a heart attack.
More skepticism from Andrew's face. I love it.
It's great.
Before you do, I don't mean to cut off your momentum.
Sure.
So that way the audience understands the embargo that
sure. Okay.
referencing. Shout out Robert Cross, friend of the pod, a loyal listener of KFS. I have put into effect an embargo on all things trade, capping, and no capping until the winning streak is over. We're not trading anybody. We're not hypothetically packaging anybody with anybody else. No trades until the winning streak's over. Jeremy, continue.
That's right. And listen, if I go too far, you can thank our friends who sent us some nice Cabernet Sauvignon, Rusty cigar. It's delicious. I'm having that tonight.
You're having the Rusty cigar also?
Plug your friends. Plug your friends.
Listen.
Yeah.
Some kind people at I want to make sure I get the name right, at One Bev. They have wine and they sent us some free booze. So yeah, Rusty. Shout out to this week's wine, Rusty cigar.
Mm-hmm.
It is perfect.
It's great and it's relevant actually because I want to talk about Julius Randle. Do you remember in the We Here season when Julius had one of those phenomenal games and Rebecca Harlow asked how he's going to unwind? He was like, "I'm going to go home and have a glass of wine."
Yeah.
Here we go. But what I want to say
was the All-Star break, I think, right? Didn't they win the last game
something like that? I just remember the wine part. It was nice. It was great. Good for him.
So do I.
Julius. How Julius is playing makes me so happy that the Knicks did not move him, let alone move him for like adding protected first to get rid of his contract. And I had one moment where it was like a lapse in judgment after the Donovan Mitchell trade where I was fine with the Mitchell trade not happening, but the fact of like, oh my God, what the letdown of not getting Ivy, not getting Mitchell, and we have to deal with Julius Randle, like just get him off my team. And in that moment, it was like, no, what are you saying? No, stick with your original thing, which is let him play it out. And he deserves, as of this moment, in my slightly biased and yet I think fair opinion, to be an all-star, at the very least in the conversation for an all-star.
Let's save that. We'll have that conversation in a bit. Yeah,
sure. The idea that the Knicks would have packaged a protected first to get rid of a player who's in the all-star conversation is nuts,
Jeremy.
And I'm really glad they didn't do that. I'm glad,
Jeremy, this happened.
Be patient. Yes,
this fucking happened what was it now? I'm losing track of time. 2.5 years ago, we had the same discussion. Maybe there wasn't as much. The Knicks should attach a protected pick to get off of him. But I remember the conversations like they were yesterday. Hey, will someone take on this essentially $19 million expiring salary? What do you think? Let's shop it around. Let's see if we get anything, literally anything. And then we turn back like a month later or 2 months later. We're like, boy, were we idiots. Well, guess what? History repeats itself.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't have, listen, if he wants to have more children, that's his decision, and I respect that completely. But the fact that he's saying he's getting more sleep and it's not because of a child, Julius, you're free to determine your own family. But as a Knicks fan, if you wanted to stop at 2, then I think 2 sounds like a great number. John, you have 2.
I was about to say
you're one of 2. I'm one of 1, but that's because I'm unique. It's perfect. Just stop at 2. If you want.
I don't respect the decision to have a third child. One child is anybody who decides to have one child, smart, good job by you. If you convince yourself that the second one is the juice is worth the squeeze, that's fine. I was convinced. Feeling fine.
Yeah.
Right now about that decision. Most of the bad is over. Even though my daughter's been throwing up on literally everything the last 3 days. We don't have to talk about that.
No, we do not.
No. If you go then back to the well a third time, then you need to ask yourself, you need to have a long look in the mirror and be like, what am I doing with my life? Because there's just no reason for it. So Julius, no more kids. How did we get to talking about children? Oh yeah.
Because I was talking about the sleep and the lack
yes.
How he's rested. And
so
he seems to be performing better.
Fantastic job by the front office, not giving into perhaps internal pressure, perhaps fan pressure, whatever. Perhaps, who knows? Maybe it was pressure from Julius's camp. We don't know. But like they didn't give into that pressure. I feel like, just to put a bow on the trade conversation that isn't a trade conversation, it will be interesting to see if they can once again withstand potential pressure from whatever sources, because this thing is working right now. It's working right now. And I'm sure it's tempting for them to look around and be like, hey, can we get this upgrade or that upgrade? And who knows, maybe we'll talk about that when the time comes, if the time comes. The thing I do want to say, because you brought it up before, and then we'll move on to the rest of the show. The luck thing. Did you say that why did you say that? Why'd you bring that up today? Any particular reason?
No, just listen. You could play great defense and there's better offense, and that's skill, but it's also luck. So, shout out to I gotta tell you, it might be a podcast I enjoy even more than Low Post. I know that's sacrilege here. The Hoop Collective. I love listening to Windy. He's really good. He's just very amusing.
He's very amusing. He puts a smile on my face, regardless of what he's talking about. I find him to be a delightful human being. I love you, Zach, but it's okay. I could have multiple favorites. So he had Kevin Pelton on, Kevin Pelton's awesome, but he is extraordinarily like data driven and like as analytically minded as you could get. So he was on today's Hoop Collective. We're recording this on Monday, so Monday's episode, and the Knicks came up because they were talking about the Bulls, and Wendy was like, "Oh, by the way, we should probably say something nice about the Knicks. They've won 7 in a row, and they're like playing like gangbusters." And immediately Pelton goes for the luck thing, which for anybody listening who may not realize what we're talking about, during this win streak, opponents are shooting, I don't know, some obscenely low number, 28, 29, 30% from deep. And if you look at the entire season, in fact, teams are shooting a very low number from deep. Now, that number was not low all year. It was right around the middle of the league for the first, like we were talking about, the first like 13 games before things started to improve. And it's dropped considerably since these changes have started to be instituted. And then I was a little disappointed in Pelton because he's like, yeah, when they were the 4th ranked defense, everybody, Knicks fans were yelling and screaming about how it's not luck, this is legit. And then he's like, and guess what happened? Last year, teams started making threes and the defense wasn't very good. One, it was the 11th ranked defense in the league last year. I'm sorry, the 11th ranked defense in the league is not a bad defense. It is actually a good defense. Not great, but good. And then one more thing, and like, maybe this is cherry picking. I don't consider it cherry picking. And it has to do with the conversation we were having before about like Tibbs does need certain basic things to execute his defense. That defense, when Kemba Walker was not on the court, which was over 3,000 minutes, which was about 75% of the total, more than 75% of the total minutes they played last year. They had a defense that would have ranked the equivalent of the 4th ranked defense in the league. Again, would have been the 2nd year in a row. And that's the non-Kemba minutes. And we're not talking about 25% of the minutes. We're not talking about 35% of the minutes. We're talking about 75+% of the minutes last year. If they just not get a guy who's a complete walkover at the point guard position. And now fast forward to since the starting lineup changes, guess what? They're top 2, top 3, whatever they are. So like, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear this luck stuff anymore. Like when you play the type of defense that they're playing, I believe that teams feel you on the perimeter. And I think there's something to that. And I think the sample size is long enough at this point.
Yeah. Any defensive backcourt that's starring Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier is not going to be a good defense. And then amazing, you put Quentin Grimes in there.
What do you know?
In there? Wow. Suddenly it's a lot better. Emmanuel Quickly in there. I mean, 99th percentile in terms of, according to Cleaning the Glass with his defense, like at last I checked, at least. When you have really good defensive players, your defense is going to look a lot better. And yeah, there's going to be a component of luck to it. But if you are putting players who are better than what you had, better than Reggie Bullock and Elfrid Payton, you're going to get a better product. So at a certain point, I don't really care. The Knicks are winning games. Yeah. And it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. But I think this is a legitimately good defense.
It is.
And Knicks have found really nice ways of neutralizing the weak defenders that they have, either by taking them out of the rotation entirely or finding ways to switch them or just masking their flaws on the defensive end in a manner where they succeed. Like if you go on Clean the Glass and you look at Julius, Jalen Brunson, and RJ's defensive numbers, they're gassy.
The on-off.
A lot of that,
the on-off. Yeah.
right? But a lot of that also depends on who they have played with. If you probably sort by, hey, well, when they've played with good defenders, they're going to look good. It's harder to identify them as individuals. But we know a lot of Julius, what we saw that was great during the We Here season was when he was applying effort. It was also like when he was switching on to Trae Young, and the Knicks didn't do that enough in the playoffs. And that would have been great because they would have succeeded, but didn't happen. Okay. RJ Barrett, a lot of it has been effort. He hasn't given his best effort before. Jalen Brunson, he gives tremendous effort. He's just limited. I mean, he's one of the best in the league in terms of at least taking charges.
Yep.
So it's not like a lack of trying. It's just inability, but what they are giving you on the offensive end and the fact that they're also playing every single game of the NBA season thus far. And let's face it, how many players or how many teams' best three best players are able to do that? It's really tough.
It's probably zero.
Happen. Right.
It's zero, I think, this
Exactly.
year. I mean, I want to go look at all the other teams, but I'm pretty sure it's zero. And just to put a cap on the point, and then we'll move on to something we're finally going to unveil after a long runway here. It's easy to say like, oh, well, you give any team Mitchell Robinson and Quentin Grimes and they're going to have a good defense. Well, no, not necessarily, because as you just pointed out, and this, I don't want to throw shade on these guys, but like Jalen Brunson is at best mediocre defender, and there are things he can't make up for, such as the fact that he is not a large human. And if you go look at the defended field goals against statistics about how guys do when they're shooting against you versus shooting against an average defender, guys are making like, I think 5% or so more of their shots against Brunson, which is like not a shock, because when guys shoot over him, it's usually because it's like, oh, I got Jalen Brunson on me. I could probably take advantage of this. Not all the time, and he fights, but like that's just the case. Julius Randle, even when he's trying hard, I would say he's mediocre, right? And RJ is getting better. He's getting better, but for much of this season has not been very good. And so the fact that they have the defense that they have with those three guys playing very prominent minutes, like to me, if you want to give flowers to Tibbs, like that's where you give flowers to Tibbs. He has figured out how to make those puzzle pieces, fit together pretty well. All right, Andrew, anything else before we move on here?
Does this mean that Kevin Pelton is our enemy now?
I like Kevin Pelton. And if you're listening to this, feel free to come on the show.
No,
and we can have a nice spirited debate.
No, you're banned forever. You have an apology to the Knicks, apology to Knicks Film School, to Knicks fans everywhere.
There it is.
Okay. And the apology needs to be as loud as the disrespect.
Oh my goodness.
My person on Twitter once said.
How do you know that that's my least favorite?
That's why I said it.
I hate you so much. All right, let's do this. It is game ball time, except it's not game ball time, because game ball time is officially renamed. Get the drum roll ready. The Cashback Player of the Week, presented by Chase Freedom Unlimited. Yes. Andrew, what are you doing? Oh, it's
ours.
Yeah.
Trumpet. Okay.
A trumpet.
In all seriousness,
that's right. John hates this shit. I forgot. The pomp and circumstance.
I love the pomp and circumstance. If it's a sponsor of our show, break out all the pomp and circumstance.
So if we're watching a game and suddenly like a DJ shows up, you're like, oh, I hate you. But if they're like, check out the Knicks Film School podcast, then you're fine with it.
I guess that would be weird.
No, it'd be more like if the company that was sponsoring us was like, hey, we're sponsoring this, and we're also sponsoring Knicks Film School.
Which technically, Chase Freedom Unlimited is the proud sponsor of Madison Square Garden.
That is
and the Knicks Film School podcast.
That is very true. And yes, and we love Chase. And in all seriousness, speaking for Andrew and Jeremy and the whole Knicks Film School family, it's a big deal to us that this podcast that got started out is like, hey, Jeremy, you got a few minutes? You want to hop on and bullshit about this game that just happened where the Knicks lost by 40? Yeah, sure. And we've gotten to the place where we're sponsored by Chase Freedom Unlimited. So that's really cool.
I'll add one quick thing.
Yeah.
I'm a Chase card holder.
That's right.
So it's very weird for Chase to be like, hey, what if we also contributed to your success on the podcast front?
Yes.
And it's very appreciated.
Wonderful. New best friends over at Chase.
Yes.
Chase. Awesome.
And a fitting first segment here, because as I just retweeted out before we started recording, I don't know when's the last time this happened. Maybe, who the hell knows? Maybe it's never happened since the NBA has been giving out these Player of the Week award things. But two Knicks were nominated for Player of the Week in the Eastern Conference. Neither of them won. Who did it go to? Did it go to Donovan Mitchell? I think it went to Donovan Mitchell. That's okay. It's neither here nor there. But the two players that were nominated are the two players that are at the top of Andrew's little rundown list here. Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. Andrew, do you really want me to read all these names? Andrew has...
Yes.
Yep.
So he writes down the nominees every week for this award, and he has written what looks like every player on the roster, with maybe a couple of exceptions. So
all worthy candidates. Yes.
Okay. Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Deuce McBride, Quentin Grimes, Mitchell Robinson, Tom Thibodeau, Leon Rose, James Dolan, best owner in sports, New York Rangers, New York Giants, and the Maccabees.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah.
Shout out to the Maccabees. That was a stirring performance.
No, I'm sorry. No. I have to.
Thank you. For the correction.
These are the Maccabees. What you're talking about are the Maccabeats. The Maccabeats are an a cappella group.
Oh, John.
Maccabees.
What's Maccabees?
No, Jeremy, play it out. I want to hear it. Go ahead, play it out.
Hanukkah.
Yes.
8 days. The oil lasted. That
the candles with the menorah.
Exactly. The Maccabees. Yes. The Maccabeats is a play on the Maccabees. Judas and the Maccabees. Maccabeats. It's the pun. It's
the story of Hanukkah. Do you know the story of Hanukkah?
No.
Oh, okay. Jeremy, do we tell him? This is like Mr. Krabs and Squidward looking in the window.
I know who those people are.
There you
do
go.
they celebrate Hanukkah?
Maybe. I don't. Maybe there's a Jewish version of SpongeBob out there. I would butcher the story. I do know that the Maccabees were the ones that fought in the war. And
the Maccabees. Why didn't you say so? I
literally wrote it down, John. You said it.
No, I was.
Why didn't you say so?
Why did I say so?
It's been a long time since I studied the Old Testament. That's
okay.
all.
That's fair. But yes, Maccabees are great. And shout out to Benji and his brother, part of the Maccabees.
Mm-hmm.
But the Maccabees are a little different. So
I think the Maccabees could take the Maccabees any day of the week. It's just my 2 cents.
I think they're on the same team.
Hey. I don't think the Maccabees would name themselves after the villains of the story. For whatever context it is. Right?
Okay. This has gone on long enough. Happy Hanukkah, everybody who celebrates. Okay, I get to go first. This is great. I'm going to give it to Julius. Because I was harder on Julius than anybody over the summer. I wanted to trade him with a protected pick to just get him off the team. That was a ridiculously asinine take, it turns out, because he is doing everything that he needs to do to prove everybody wrong. I understand, and I got some pushback in the post game for anybody who missed it after the Pacers game about how good his defense actually was. Yes, I know Andrew Nembhard, or not Nembhard, the other one,
Nesmith,
Aaron Nesmith, got some threes off on him. I don't care, and the reason I don't care is because when he plays with this level of effort, and when he's clearly executing the scheme now, that is a different scheme than was the scheme to start with, because as Benji had a great thread today on Twitter, he's not playing a drop anymore. They're switching and it's working, and he's fully engaged. The effort is there. Everything you want is there. I was looking up today. Do you realize his 2-point field goal shooting is like almost 10 percentage points higher than it was last year? That's ridiculous. He is shooting. There's the other thing I looked up that I want to give him a shout out for. He's shooting the highest percentage of his career at the rim, with the exception of the one season, his last season in LA. And in that season in LA, he played almost like something 95+% of his minutes, either at center, where it's obviously much easier to score around the rim if there's no other big guys impeding your progress there, or alongside Brook Lopez, when Brook Lopez was kind of already established as a 3-point marksman. So very different circumstances than this team. And he's killing it at the rim. He's doing everything that they could possibly want and then some. So my game ball will go to Julius Randle.
Well, if you hadn't picked him, I would have. So
there you go.
Excellent. Even when I lose, I still win because I get to say Jalen Brunson, which is great. And yeah, I don't know how many more times I can say Jalen Brunson is just up there, maybe my favorite Knick. And yet he just keeps putting on weekly performance after weekly performance. And it's early still in this season, even if we're at the 30 game mark or so. But I got to tell you, even with the Mavs drubbing that occurred at MSG, there have been a lot of tweets that have been like update, like dunking on the people who are against the Jalen Brunson contract and the signing and all of that. And I remember the ones where it was like, oh, wow, well, like he's leaving the Mavs to join a worse team and good luck with that, New York. And
how's that working out for
right
you?
now? There's one team that's currently at 500. We'll see what happens tonight when the Mavs play the Timberwolves. And there's another team, the one that Jalen Brunson's actually on and underpaid for. They've won 7 games in a row. So I appreciate him for going out there. And I mean, clearly he's hobbled. Can't tell. He's that invincible. It's great.
Remember when he was going to miss like a month because of his ankle got rolled? That was fun.
Yeah, that I'm certainly glad didn't. Let the good times roll.
Real quick before we move on to, again, a segment that I guess we're going to skip over this week. The All-Star conversation, you brought it up before. I don't want to have a whole thing now because it's too early and like there's time for it. But just to go through some very, very quick advanced stats. So this is all via basketballreference.com. Win shares this season. Jalen Brunson ranks 17th in the NBA. Julius Randle ranks 24th in the NBA. VORP, good old VORP, value over replacement player. Talk about a neck and neck race. Jalen Brunson, 19th. Julius Randle, 20th. Doesn't get much closer than that. And then box plus minus. Julius Randle, 26th. Jalen Brunson, 22nd. So Brunson has him in all of the big advanced stats that people usually go to. I would say that Jalen Brunson, if the Knicks get one All-Star, would be my one pick because, again, it's great that and part of this is the scheme, which maybe was not in his control. Actually, it was not in his control. And that's needs to be said. But like Julius Randle was a real train wreck on defense for about half the season, and he's gotten much better. Brunson has not been, again, not a positive defender, but like I don't think his impact was quite as detrimental. So I think that's part of it. And I also think, Jalen Brunson in the clutch this year, I looked it up after the Pacers game. He's the 4th most clutch points in the league. And his field goal percentage in clutch situations is higher than the 3 guys ahead of him. So you could argue that Jalen Brunson has been, if not the best clutch player in the league, like he's right up there. That matters, I think. So yeah, it would be Brunson for me. Do you have a vote yet?
Yes, it would be Brunson for me as well. Here's the thing. We know that Randle can have a great season with Elfrid Payton as his point guard. So It's not like he needs a good point guard to be a good player, but it helps. Yeah. It helps a lot. And the fact that he's got Jalen Brunson as his running mate and the Knicks were able to sign Jalen Brunson with cap space. Yes, they had to clear money. Don't care. He has been so good that he has propelled the entire team, and Julius Randle has done his role. He's done his job. I still would gravitate towards Brunson as being the guy if you had to pick one. Hopefully, if the fans have any say, and I know it's just a percentage of it, but if we as fans can collectively vote and get 2 All-Stars into the Eastern Conference from the Knicks, that's pretty awesome. And you'll probably write about this in the newsletter. Can you remember the last time 2 Knicks were in the All-Star game together when they were current Knicks? Was it 2010?
I think
2011?
Oh, were Melo and Stat both in the same All-Star game?
I don't believe so.
No, because Stat only made it in 2000. the 2010-11 season, and Melo wasn't. He got traded like right after the All-Star break, right? Or like he wasn't a Knick yet.
He got traded after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And that was Stat only had one All-Star appearance for the Knicks. So I actually think
there's another year. I think
Chandler and Melo.
And Melo in 2013.
Right. And the one before that, was it Houston and Sprewell?
Yes, it was 2000.
2001.
2001.
Do we think if they're both named to the All-Star team that this will be a trivia question on the MSG telecast? It has to be, right?
And you will have heard it here first, everybody.
Tyson Chandler and Carmelo Anthony. And
when was
Allen Houston and Latrell Sprewell?
Yes. When was the last time? I know this one. When was the last time the Knicks had 3 players in the All-Star game?
95 or 96?
You're close.
It's 94?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you name 3 players? It should be obvious.
Ewing.
Yep.
Starks and Oakley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That wasn't 95?
No, that was 94. I mean, double check me.
They made the finals. Okay.
Yeah, it was the year they made the finals, 93-94 season. Anyway, so a little fun trivia.
Listen, before we get to detention, and there's not much to get to in detention, but like the next 18 opponents, 15 are under 500. You want to talk some, you want to like get,
I don't want to talk about it. And I purposely didn't bring it up yet in the show. And I don't want to bring it up.
I do want to bring it up though, because I wrote something down very similar to that. And listen, the Knicks have to take care of business no matter what.
You're tempting the fates, Jeremy. Both
I'm
you guys.
not saying that they're going to win. I'm saying that this is what's in front of them. It is our responsibility to bring forth and inform those who may not have looked about what's happening. Yep. And the way that I see it is when you look at the next 18 games, as Andrew mentioned, 12 of them are against teams that are either specifically tanking or they're just floundering, right? Like the Torontos of the world. The Warriors of like, we've just lost Steph Curry.
Yep.
Those are the types of teams the Knicks are playing. The Knicks do a really nice job of beating up against bad teams. That is what you're supposed to do. You can only beat the teams that are on your schedule and in front of you. Yep. And if the Knicks can take care of business, and for these 12 of the 18 games, if they can, play well, because let's face it, the East, as good as the Knicks have been in lockstep with the Knicks. The teams from
everybody's winning right now.
Everyone's winning in the Knicks range. And I'm sure some fans might be upset about that. I'd love it if a lot of those teams didn't win. But to me, the Knicks are just keeping pace. Yeah. And the fact that they are right now a solid 6 seed, that's pretty awesome. I'll take that. But yeah, there's a good stretch of schedule ahead of them. They just have to take care of business. That's all it is.
Adds to the point I was going to make. We're here like, can they get one All-Star or can they get a second All-Star? Or if we had to choose, it's obviously only going to be one. Like, how good would they have to play? Let them take care of business during this 18-game stretch and let Jalen Brunson start the All-Star game.
Well, that would be wonderful. I'm still at the point of like, I want to get one All-Star.
I get what you're saying. Like, that has to happen. If the New York Knicks, so let's just play this. I was doing this in the group chat all day today. Say they're 32 and say they're 30-17 through 47 games. Okay.
30-17.
Yes.
So they would need to go 13-4,
13-5 over the next 18 games. And again, 15 of the next 18 under 500. So they go 13-5 and they're 30-17. The 2 All-Star conversation is over. They will have 2. And then you think Jalen Brunson gets that other guard spot next to Donovan Mitchell, which would be hilarious.
Well, when the Knicks lose their next 18 games in a row,
it's our fault.
I was about to say
100% our fault.
Oh, it's your fault. Okay. You listed the number. I just stated that there is a schedule and it's a favorable one, and they have to take care of business. You gave a record, sir.
Yes,
that's on you.
I'm not saying the Knicks will go 13-5. I'm saying to have the All-Star conversation we're having right now with Randle and Brunson. If you want to project out a bit and what would have to happen for the two All-Star conversation and be over and maybe set your sights a little higher, like this is the same podcast that 2 years ago during the 9-game winning streak, John was like, well, let's set our horizons a little higher. Portland might trade Dame. And then that summer became, can the Knicks get Dame Lillard to add to the We Here team?
Wait, I'm sorry, remind me, what record did you say that the Knicks will have after this stretch?
Will have? Are you baiting me?
I'm asking you what you said.
He said 30-17.
I said they would have to be something like 30-17 after 47 games.
There was a moment where, folks, if you're at home, you can clip it and say the Knicks will be 30-17. That's what.
Oh gosh!
All right, enough of this. Let's move on.
Hashtag 53 wins, baby.
Yeah,
Great. I wish we did not have that whole conversation because I hate tempting the fates. Detention. No one. Seriously, detention is closed. Or Kevin Pelton. We're not putting anyone in detention this week.
Except Kevin Pelton, apparently.
No. Kevin Pelton.
Sworn enemy.
Come on the pod. We love you. Okay. Predictions presented by our good friends at WinBet. As a reminder, you could first of all, tune into the pregame show before every Knick game, in which you get the betting and sweating picks from our esteemed panel of experts. You could also download, and you should download, the WinBet app, or visit www.winbet.com to start winning. Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $100, win $100. Download, bet, win. We will see if I could win one more week to guess to within half of Jeremy's win total of 6 on the year for these weekly predictions. He is up 6-2 right now. I have to say, I feel like my task is a little bit easier after Andrew reminded me last night that I am picking 4 games, not 3, because I was going to be in a I thought I was going to be in a tricky spot. Now I don't feel as bad. Okay. Tuesday, Golden State. Wednesday, Toronto. Friday, Chicago. Sunday, Christmas Day, Philadelphia, all at home. I think you know what I'm going to do here, Jeremy.
I do know what you're going to do.
Yeah. The math says this is the right move, even if my heart may disagree. I'm going 3-1 because, again, this is a franchise that existed or has existed for 76 years, and they have had hold on, I may have closed the page. Oh, wait, no, it's right here. They have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 11-game winning streaks of 11 games or more. 5 in 76 years. It's really hard to win 11 games in a row. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying they won't do it. I'm just saying I think it's the smart decision for me here to take 3-1. Sorry, Robert Cross.
Yeah, no, 3-1 was always going to be the one that you were going to take. For me, it's a challenge.
I know.
Because on one hand, I've got enough of a lead right at this moment where I go 4-0.
You could.
And I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
One loss sets back. I'm going to talk it through. The Warriors are without Steph Curry. It's a challenge. Or is it? It's not. Because they're not a great team without him.
Did you see what Jordan Poole put up?
I did, though. That's the thing. He did a good job. Toronto Raptors, they're in a spiral. Do the Bulls want revenge? How good are the Sixers? They're really good right now. I have to go 2-2. I don't think there's much of a choice here. I'd love to take 4-0. And hopefully I miss out on 4-0. And that was the worst mistake of the week that I've made. I'll still be rooting for 3-1, John, even if they lose a game, because the Knicks are more important. But I'm going to go with 2-2.
It's the right move. It's the smart move. Listen to Tibbs. You get ahead of yourself and it's easy to fall on your ass in this league. I don't think the Knicks are getting ahead of themselves, and it is because of that kind of baseline of competence that we spoke of earlier. But the Warriors shoot a lot of threes. Thankfully, the Raptors and the Bulls don't. But the Sixers are playing really well. They're literally on my TV right now, and they're on a 17-4 run against the Raptors. So that's going to be tricky. And then, but listen, I hope we're both wrong. I hope they go 4-0. That would be something. And then Andrew, we could talk about your wild fantasies.
Knicks related fantasies.
Yes.
Knicks related.
Those are the only ones that get said on this pod. If you want to check out Patreon, maybe.
I'm not saying
maybe.
Okay.
Did you guys read the schedule, by the way?
Yeah, I did. Why?
Okay. I must have also been checking the out of town scores. Some programming notes on the schedule. Tuesday, so tomorrow, I guess tonight when you're hearing this, is our playback game. The Knicks are on TNT. So Benji, Jon, Jeremy, and I actually haven't asked everybody if they're available, but whoever is available,
I'll be there.
Okay. We'll be there for playback. So join us for a live watch party. $7 a month gets you access to all of our watch parties as well as our extra episodes and the KFS Discord. You sign up via the KFS Patreon, which is available. The link is on our website, in the episode description of this YouTube video, all the above. And then, do we want to have the production meeting on air of what's happening Sunday, Jeremy?
Sure. We can.
Is it just it's you and me doing the post game, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So Jon will have to.
Yeah, sorry.
Some of us have some of his kids, and we are not going to make them do Christmas on YouTube.
I was going to say some of us believe in the Maccabees and the Maccabees.
That too.
But and that's why we're suddenly free on Sunday.
Yeah,
it's
amazing.
not the kids. I have a wife, and she has a family, and I will be with them. And it's that I'm going to be enough of a dick sitting in front of the TV for 2.5 hours watching the game. I'm not going to be even more of a dick to then go and sit in front of a laptop for another however many hours. Although, man, I told her this morning, I said, if that's 11 in a row, all I'm going to want to do is be talking about.
You'll be sitting there with your phone, and you're going to end up disappearing from the party anyway.
Shout out to my in-laws. I love you.
Yes. Regardless, Jeremy and I will be doing the post game on Sunday after the Christmas Day game against the Sixers. We'll handle the Chase Cashback Player of the Week that day, and Jon will text me his predictions.
Yes.
So your show that normally comes out on Monday morning will come out Monday morning. It will just be part of the post game show against the Sixers. And yeah, happy holidays, everybody, in the holiday season that we're currently a part of.
Yes. Happy holidays, everybody. I'm happy the Knicks are playing well, because if you're listening to this podcast, that probably makes you happy. And that's a cool thing to be happy around Christmas time. Thank you, Andrew.
By the way,
yes,
you kind of zoomed past it during Chase Cashback Player of the Week. But the Rangers, James Dolan's other team, or a candidate, are also on a 7-game winning streak. It's the first time.
It, yeah.
Right. Well, you had mentioned it. So you just kind of zoomed past it. It was like, the Rangers, the Giants, the Maccabees. I have no clue any of these people are. Regardless, do you know the last time that the New York Knicks and the New York Rangers were on concurrent 7-game winning streaks?
No, I know that the last time the Knicks and the Nets were on concurrent winning streaks of this length was like in the late 70s, because Woj tweeted that earlier today. But no, I don't know when the Knicks and the Rangers were both on these sorts of winning streaks.
Jeremy knows.
Was it not 1993?
Well,
94, yes. The 94, yeah, 93,
the
94
93-94 season. We all know how that season ended.
Yes, with O.J. Simpson going to jail.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So let's hope that happens this year too.
I know the Knicks.
Jeez.
For non-murder charges.
I don't care what it is.
All right.
Come on, put OJ in detention. Jeez.
OJ's always in detention.
Well, I mean, I'm not allowed to leave certain states, whatever.
If there's somebody that should not get out of detention for the good of all involved, it is OJ Simpson. Shout out to Yash. All right. That's it. Andrew, thank you. Jeremy, thank you. Everybody out there, thank you. Oh, here, this is the last thing. The Knicks Film School Podcast was, Andrew, you tweeted this out before, was the 21st ranked basketball podcast in the country this week.
Yes, it was.
Pretty cool.
As of today, yes, right? As of this moment, we are at number 21.
Yeah, pretty cool to be up ahead of some of the big boys out there in the landscape who have a lot more financial backing than we do. But you know what
up, Beck?
You did. But that is a testament to everybody listening to this podcast right now. So thank you. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out.
We're ahead of Sam Vecini. We're ahead of Tom Haberstroh and
all the names.
Amin Al Hassan. We're ahead of CJ McCollum. Jeez. We're ahead of Byron Scott. We're ahead of NBA.
Aaron Scott has a podcast.
Listen, name a
Well, he doesn't have a job.
Name a former NBA somebody. They probably have a podcast.
Yeah, sure.
It's true.
Yes, that is how the industry is right now, which is why our pod standing out speaks volumes.